Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. We've got a really kind of heavy one today. We're going to be diving into some news articles and initial reports, kind of early information. But it's about this unsettling situation, the deaths of these two 19-year-old twin brothers.
Yeah.
Qaadir Malik Lewis and Naazir Rahim Lewis.
Wow.
And this happened on Saturday, March 8th. And they were found on Bell Mountain in Hiawassee, Georgia.
Okay.
So really the goal here is just for us to wrap our heads around the facts, how they were found, what the initial investigation's telling us.
Right.
But I think what's going to be really interesting here is what are the questions the family's raising?
Yeah, I mean, that's huge, right? Because immediately you've got this initial assessment right from the authorities.
Yeah.
Suggesting a murder-suicide.
Yeah.
And the family is just, they are not having it. They are pushing back so hard.
Absolutely. So let's, I think we should just jump right into it and start unpacking this.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, you kind of hit on it right off the bat. It's this massive clash.
Mm-hmm.
What law enforcement initially concluded versus what the family so strongly believes. And, these initial reports, murder-suicide, it was really stemming from the fact that both brothers were found with gunshot wounds at the top of this Bell Mountain.
Right.
That's like the first domino.
Right
there.
Yeah, and it all started, we have to kind of go back to that Saturday, March 8th. Pretty grim discovery around 11:05 a.m. local time.
Okay.
Hikers on Bell Mountain in Hiawassee, Georgia, they find Qaadir and Naazir.
Wow.
And, of course, they contact the Towns County 911 Center.
Of course.
And that gets the Towns County Sheriff's Office involved. And then the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, GBI, gets involved too.
Right. And speaking of that discovery, let's sort of back up and look at the location a little bit. Bell Mountain in Hiawassee.
Yeah.
It's always described as, this popular hiking spot. Tourists love it. And it's really close to the North Carolina border.
Yeah.
So you've got this very scenic, pretty accessible summit. And it's like, this is where this whole thing goes down.
Right.
So, right away, it's like, how do they even end up there?
Right, exactly. And who are these young men? So we've got Qaadir Malik Lewis and Naazir Rahim Lewis, both 19 years old.
Okay.
They're from Lawrenceville, Georgia.
All right.
Now, the initial reports are saying the cause of death appears to be gunshot wounds for both of them.
So that's what they're seeing.
Yeah, and this really, you can see how this kind of sets the stage for the GBI. Their assessment being murder-suicide. They issue this statement, their preliminary conclusion. It's all based on what they're finding at the scene.
And this is where it kind of all takes a turn.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Because from the family's perspective, it's totally different. They thought Qaadir and Naazir were on their way to Boston.
They had a trip planned.
Yeah. They had a 7 a.m. flight booked for Boston on Friday, March 7th. That's the day before they were found.
Gotcha.
On Bell Mountain.
So like a completely different direction.
Totally. And here's something that really stands out. I think anybody who's traveled, you're going to think about this.
Yeah.
Their plane tickets were found in their wallets.
Oh, wow.
Like, think about that.
That's strange.
Right.
Because it sounds like they were planning on going, right?
Mm-hmm.
They had this trip. They had the tickets. They hadn't just like ditched their plan or anything.
Yeah.
And they end up, like 90 miles in the wrong direction, basically.
Yeah.
On a mountain that they weren't planning to go to.
Right. And this is, the family, they're not just like in denial. They're saying that the twins were incredibly close.
Okay.
They always protected each other. They were inseparable, and there's absolutely no history of conflict between them.
So no reason to think that one would hurt the other at all.
None. And we even have quotes from their uncles, Rahim, and their aunt, Samira, really highlighting how close these two were. And they can't imagine, no matter what, any scenario where one would harm the other.
It's interesting because you're hearing it straight from the people who knew them best, right?
Yeah.
And it's such a strong counter-narrative to what the authorities are saying. It makes you think, like, how much weight should we be giving to these personal accounts?
Right.
They knew them better than anyone.
Yeah. And they're not just saying they don't believe it. They're actually demanding further investigation.
Into what actually happened.
Yeah, on Bell Mountain. And, this idea that one of them would hurt the other, they just can't wrap their heads around it.
Of course.
Yeah.
It just doesn't fit with what they knew.
Yeah,
right?
No, not at all.
And then there's the whole location piece, too.
Right. So Lawrenceville, where the twins lived,
Yeah.
about 90 miles from Bell Mountain, which is in Hiawassee. And, that's not just a quick hop.
No. It's trick.
And the family's pointing this out, saying they've never been there before. They don't know Hiawassee. They don't know Bell Mountain.
Wow.
It just doesn't add up.
So they're unfamiliar with the whole area.
Completely.
It seems so random then.
Right, and they're not even hikers.
Okay, so this wasn't like a hobby or anything?
Not at all. So this idea that they decided to go for a hike on this mountain they've never even been to, it's bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, that's the million-dollar question, right? How did they end up out in the mountains?
Absolutely.
Because if you combine that with, the Boston trip,
Right.
the tickets, it just, something's missing there.
Yeah.
And it almost feels like the family is saying, something else must have been going on. There must be some other factor that brought them there.
Yeah, for sure.
Like this wasn't their choice.
Right. And here's what we do know. The GBI's medical examiner, they've done the autopsies on Qaadir and Naazir.
Okay.
But the official ruling, how they died, what the autopsies say, all that.
Right.
We don't have it yet.
Still waiting on that.
Yeah, it's pending. More tests.
So, even though they said murder-suicide, it's not set in stone yet?
No.
It could change?
Absolutely.
That must be so hard on the family, waiting and not knowing for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And they're not just waiting. Their aunt, Rahim Brawner, she started a GoFundMe.
Okay.
To help with expenses.
Right.
But on the page, her statement is so powerful, she just flat out rejects the murder-suicide idea.
So she's using it to get their side of the story out there, too.
Yeah. She says they wouldn't do this. Something happened at Bell Mountain. That's what she says.
Right.
That ended their lives. And she's basically pleading, please investigate further.
I mean, it's not just about money then.
No.
It's about getting people's attention.
Yeah, it's a platform. And people are responding. As of Monday morning, March 17th, they've raised over $22,500.
So people are hearing them.
Yeah, they are. So let's just kind of back up and go over the timeline again.
Okay, yeah.
So Friday, March 7th, the twins have that 7 a.m. flight to Boston.
Right.
They don't get on the flight.
For some reason.
For whatever reason, yeah. Then the next day, Saturday, March 8th, they're found on Bell Mountain.
Around 11:05 a.m.
Right. And then the GBI comes out with that initial assessment, murder-suicide, and then the family pushes back.
Saying, no, they were going to Boston.
They had tickets.
They've never been to this mountain.
They're not hikers.
Yeah, so many questions.
So many questions. And all this is happening while we're waiting on those final autopsy results.
Right, right. So who are the main players here? Just so we're all clear.
Yeah, so obviously you have Qaadir and Naazir.
At the center of it all.
Right. And their aunts and uncles, Samira, Rahim, Rahim Brawner, they're the ones really advocating for the family.
Okay.
They're pushing for answers. They're the ones disagreeing with what the officials are saying.
Gotcha. And on the official side, we've got the GBI, the Towns County Sheriff's Office.
Right. And we also have the hikers who found them.
I mean, it's really the family that's driving this narrative.
Oh, absolutely. They're the ones saying, look deeper. There's more to this.
Yeah, they're not letting it go. And that's kind of what's so compelling about this whole thing, right? You've got this huge discrepancy.
Huge.
So the authorities are saying murder-suicide.
Because of what they saw on the mountain.
Exactly. But the family's like, no way.
Not these two.
Not these two.
Not at that location.
Yeah.
And don't forget, we still don't have the official cause of death.
Right. We just have this initial report.
Exactly. A snapshot. And so many questions.
It's kind of like, what happens when what you see at first doesn't match up with what the people who knew them best are saying.
Yeah.
It's like, what do you do with that?
Right. And especially when you think about the Boston trip, the plane tickets, that mountain, what could explain all that?
Yeah. It really makes you realize that there's a lot more to an investigation than just the first impression.
Absolutely.
There can be so many twists and turns. Sometimes you have to be patient and wait for more information to come out.
Yeah, and really consider all the angles. So, that's kind of where we are with this one.
A lot of unknowns.
A lot of unknowns. But I think it's really important that we're following this and seeing what comes out.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. This one was definitely heavy.
Yeah, it was. But hopefully we'll have some answers soon.
I hope so.
All right. We'll be back next time with another deep dive.
Sounds good.
See you then.